Ladies and gentlemen, we in Russia have a saying: "Скоро сказка делается, да не скоро дело делается." A tale is quickly told, but doing it is not quickly done. Sometimes it's not true. Sometimes doing is ahead of telling. All of us who contributed to this book were working on it for almost 2 years. When I have received an invitation in February 2020 to write for a book about poverty alleviation in China, it was not evident that poverty will be conquered and the Xiaokang Society will be established by 2021. Remember, that was the time of COVID-19 spreading across China. Remember, that was the peak time of American trade war against China. Writing my part of the book helped me to collect a trove of information on the poverty in China and on the CPC strategy to fight it. I shared this knowledge and my own ideas with other experts and mass media, and response was always very positive. Yes, we still have too many poor people in Russia, and more than 13% of the population lives below poverty line. I told my people that it is time to start analyzing the Chinese success story and learning from it. I told them about unprecedented campaign that was carried out with no consideration of cost in spite of the slowing economy. I explained that each household deemed to be in poverty was identified with a clear sign by their entrance and the name of a party cadre worker sent to help the household. More than 2.9 million party cadre workers were sent to help poor villages rise above the poverty line. In higher-level arrangements, affluent eastern provinces have been paired with poor provinces and offered financial support, jobs, and business opportunities. It is difficult to calculate how much money has been poured into the poverty alleviation strategy. It has depended on resources from government funding, as well as enterprises to build infrastructure, such as roads and businesses, relocate people away from extremely poor areas, and pay for education and public health. I reminded my Russian audiences that before the reform and opening up policy started in 1871, I reminded my Russian audiences that before the reform and opening up policy started in 1978, more than 95% of Chinese were impoverished, and by 2012 there were still 99 million very poor people left. It was then when a new deadline was set. Poverty must be eliminated by 2021. And now we are witnessing this great plan completed. It was achieved not by giving fish to the hungry. Millions of Chinese were taught to catch fish and helped to find new jobs, new dwellings, new destinies. We do not know how much more resolution it took the Chinese leaders to continue poverty alleviation war while being attacked on other domestic and foreign fronts, to find financial and material resources. We do not know about sacrifices of the 3 million strong army of party fighters scattered in mountainous and rural regions cut off during the pandemic. What we know is that the victory was achieved, and it was achieved according to the initial promise, by 2021. This year, 2021, will enter history books as the final year of the great experiment to alleviate several hundred million people from poverty. This year will also enter history books as the initial year of another great experiment called common prosperity. Some experts predict that it is not going to be about individuals, but groups of people. They say that the next stage of poverty alleviation is about narrowing the gap between cities and rural areas, and between affluent and poor regions. These goals are possible to reach because of what China has already achieved in eliminating absolute poverty by providing individuals with necessary means and conditions, and by helping them to develop the capability for self-development. The notion of common prosperity dates back to the 50s and Mao Zedong. Another great leader, Deng Xiaoping, repeatedly mentioned the idea in the 80s. Chairman Xi Jinping's rhetoric on common prosperity has surged this year, when the absolute poverty was eradicated. At an economic leadership meeting in August this year, Chinese leaders agreed that PRC must pursue a next goal of common prosperity, where citizens share in the opportunity to be wealthy, as the main objective for the next stage of its development until 2035. They were stressing the need to maintain an efficient economy that allows for that smoothing out of wealth. At the meeting, common prosperity was described as a means to properly deal with the relationship between efficiency and fairness. This refers to affluence shared by everyone, both in material and cultural terms, not the prosperity for just a few, nor an absolute equal distribution, and should be advanced step by step. Situation with wealth distribution in China has improved greatly after historic success of poverty alleviation campaign. But it is still far from initial socialist ideals of the Communist Party. At the very top of the nation, we see 415 billionaires with combined wealth of about $1.7 trillion. By the way, this is roughly the size of Russia's total gross domestic product. At the top, we also see 5,280,000 households of millionaires. Together with billionaires, they control more than 30% of national wealth. There is also a huge middle class of about 400 million people, earning from $15,000 to $75,000 a year. Yes, there are also 600 million Chinese, earning an average monthly income of just 1,000 yuan or less. Premier Li Keqiang said in May this year about that. And by the way, this is about $150 a month. These figures signal that the Chinese Communist Party has a long way to go to reach its second centenary goal and to build China into a modern socialist country that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, and reach the level of moderately developed countries by 2049. Yes, the way is long and unpredictable, just like the Long March was when it started in 1935. But important words were said, and important deeds followed. The scope and goals of the Common Prosperity campaign are still to be clarified at the 6th Plenum of Central Committee in November. But several major Chinese fintech companies like Alibaba, Tencent, and ByteDance already have felt the pressure and started to share their profits with small and medium-sized companies and underdeveloped provinces, giving billions to different funds and charities. Lessons of common prosperity are also being learned by big monopolies of the edtech or private tutoring industry, providing off-hours tutoring, distributing tape lessons, organizing tutoring sessions at homes, hotels, or even coffee houses, with an annual intake of some $100 billion. It looks like the reason for these important corrections of the market forces lies in decisions of the party leadership to accelerate bridging the gap between the haves and have-nots that endanger social stability and confines the national consumer market. Moreover, the recent changes underline the tendency of remembering the initial goals of the Communist Party. Socialism with Chinese characteristics becomes more and more socialist. I hope to take part in a new book about this stage of poverty alleviation, and I wish my colleagues to do the same. Thank you very much.